If you've ever watched Idiocracy, there's a classic scene where Frito Pendejo is watching Ow My Balls on his toilet-equipped chair. It was at this moment that this movie suddenly predicted TikTok and started to become not a comedy, but a documentary or even a tragedy. In today's video, I'm going to do a general review of the effects of TikTok in short-form videos based on the science. I combed through some of the latest research and I'm summarizing it for you guys here. Okay, so without any further ado, let's get straight into it. First off, what is brain rot? Well, there's no scientific definition of brain rot. In the literature, the effects of what we normally call brain rot are not studied separately, but if you look it up and try to get a definition, you'll see something like this. It's the effect on cognition and the brain due to an overuse of shallow content. I think we all know what shallow content means here. Basically, short videos, like TikTok. Social media has been around for a long time, for example, MySpace, and we weren't talking about brain rot 20 years ago. However, I do think the meaning of brain rot has slightly changed recently to mean pretty much any negative effects on the brain of any new technology. So for this one though, I'm going to start off with TikTok because I think it's one of the most brain rot inducing types of media, and it'll give a good introduction to brain rot and also just to keep the video length under control. Okay guys, so stay tuned for future parts of the video. Okay, first we need to divide the effects of brain rot into two aspects, mental and social. By social, I mean changing the way you interact with people, although obviously mental and social effects will overlap and affect each other. In mental effects, we can further narrow it down to three kinds of mental effects: attention, knowledge, and critical thinking. Okay, let's get straight into the first effect, attention. Attention might be the single most important effect because no matter what you do, all information has to first pass through the gatekeeper of attention. If your attention is scrambled, it's going to have effects all down the line because pretty much everything depends on what you're paying attention to. I don't think it's going to be a shocker for you guys what short form videos do to your attention. They wreck it. In one study, researchers performed what is called an oddball paradigm. What this is basically is showing you a bunch of stimuli in rapid succession. They could be shapes, sounds, or whatever, and then suddenly showing you a different one, an oddball, and seeing what your brain does. So the first study looked at how much time the participants spent watching short form videos. Then they put an EKG in their heads and ran the oddball paradigm, showing them certain shapes and then an oddball shape every now and then. What they found was a decrease in a certain signal in the brain called the P300, which is associated with the brain locking in on novel stimuli and putting those into working memory. So basically what this is when your brain sees something new, what we want to see is a strong reaction from the brain. Well, with the participants that used the most social media or the most short form videos, we did not see that. So this is not good. This means that the brains of heavy TikTok users were not good at locking in on new stimuli, a very basic function of the brain. Now, to be clear, this is a correlation, but I think we can also connect the dots here and almost be positive that there's a causation going on. It might be surprising that watching tons of videos or short form videos makes your brain actually worse at locking into new stimuli because you're good at what you practice, right? But actually, short form videos teach you not to focus on new stimuli because none of it is salient. None of it matters. You just keep swiping. This is a pattern we're going to see again and again in this video. When it comes to brain rot, what seems like practice is actually negative practice. You're getting worse at what you're doing more. So folks, right off the bat, we can say that TikTok is damaging your brain. This is basically brain damage. The weak P300 signal is also associated with other conditions such as depression and schizophrenia. This is just the beginning. Rounding out attention is another related study about how short-form videos ruins a form of memory called prospective memory. Okay, this is the kind of memory that you use when, say, you want to remember to get some milk when you pass by the store later. Not surprisingly, short-form videos ruin it because they scramble your attention and clog up your visual working memory, hypothesized by the study. And this was with only short-form videos, not other forms of social media. Let's move on to knowledge. Well, already, since attention and memory are being negatively affected, we can surmise that knowledge would also be affected. If your working memory and attention are totally cooked when using TikTok, I'm assuming here that any knowledge that requires a conscious rehearsing, such as factual knowledge, is not going to be effectively learned through TikTok. Those that have used it all have the experience of that time distortion of hours going by, not remembering what you just watched or what you just did. Some studies, though, have shown that short-form videos can improve more subconscious style learning, such as language. However, the bottom line is, the research I found just isn't clear about the effect of short-form videos on factual knowledge. There are studies, though, about surfing the internet, older studies that show that when people search the internet, they remember where the fact is, but not the fact itself. We'll have to see, though, with later research, what exactly you can learn scrolling through TikTok. So it's still a question at this point. On to critical thinking. Guys, we already know. I mean, how is TikTok going to improve your critical thinking? This is literally and figuratively a no-brainer, but we'll just look at the study anyway. So what is critical thinking? The critical thinking rabbit hole goes pretty deep, and what critical thinking exactly is beyond the scope of this video. But critical thinking in this sense is basically questioning your own instincts to arrive at a truth. This is related to a concept called type 1, type 2 thinking. Type 1 is automatic instinctual gut conclusions, while type 2 thinking is slower and more methodical. So this has a classic example. You buy a baseball bat and a ball for $1.10. The baseball bat costs $1 more than the ball. How much did the ball cost? Take a second to think about it. Your first instinct is probably 10 cents. But if you check this, you'll find this is wrong. If the ball cost 10 cents, that means the bat cost $1.10, $1 more than the ball. And together, they cost $1.20. So the correct answer is actually 5 cents. Type 1 thinking is that part of the brain that whispered $1 to you. And type 2 thinking is the part of the brain that said, wait a minute. Check out the book Thinking Fast and Slow if you're interested in this. Well, let's take a wild guess if TikTok helps your critical thinking. In a study, it was shown that after giving a control group and a test group either normal videos or short form videos that can be swiped, respectively, the test group, or the group that got the swipeable TikTok videos, tested worse on critical thinking compared to before the videos. In the study, critical thinking was tested by giving type 1, type 2 thinking style question, and also asking them about possible fake news and the biases of the news. What was interesting is that it seemed to be the swiping effect that affected critical thinking the most. This was a great study because it was controlled and seems to indicate a causal connection. Keep in mind also that the participants of this study were elite Chinese university students. So if the elite of the university students were affected, then you can imagine how people untrained in critical thinking would be even more affected. This actually makes some sense because swiping is training your brain to make very fast judgments based on feeling alone, which, as I will talk about later, I think is one of the hallmark signs of brain rot and one of the most dangerous. Okay, let's move on to communication. Here, the research gets a little complicated because by and large, we simply don't know how TikTok and short videos are affecting how people communicate. I was able to find this paper showing a correlation between short video use and a decrease of verbal ability in young teens only, and also delayed gratification, or a decrease in delayed gratification. But this was just a correlation, so until we get more definitive research, we'll just have to assume that the frequent watching of any videos, including TV, is going to decrease verbal ability simply because you're not reading or talking, and so you're not practicing these skills. Again, it's complicated because videos can help in the acquisition of some unconscious skills like language learning, like I mentioned before. My personal theory is that TikTok enforces thinking in pictures and memes, but there's practically no real research on this, at least that I could find. I will be developing this idea in later videos. So let's just quickly summarize the findings. First, attention is wrecked. To me, this is the most obvious and important finding, and I don't think any of us are surprised here. Secondly, short-term memory, working memory also takes a hit. This is related to attention. If short videos are anything like surfing the internet, factual knowledge is probably being outsourced. With attention being wrecked, I would be surprised if any factual knowledge gains are possible. Other forms of knowledge that don't depend on conscious thinking might be improved, like I mentioned before. Critical thinking takes a hit, and this is primarily due to swiping. Verbal ability, delayed gratification also take hit. So we can see the chain from attention, the mediator of what goes in the mind, to critical thinking, to higher level mental skills all being affected. Here's the main takeaway in my opinion. The format of short videos are training minds, especially young, impressionable, developing minds, to make quick emotional judgments. This is what swiping is. You make a snap judgment of whether something entertains you, and you swipe away if you don't like it. Remember that swiping was a big factor in one of the studies. Also, you're not focusing on details. Remember the study about insensitivity to new stimuli. These are holistic, emotional, nonverbal snap judgments using the type 1 system. Basically, the type 1 system, in a way, is being trained. This mindset is being trained. Of course, short-form videos are meant to be entertaining, but this has been going on for decades with TV, and putting entertainment above all else is really nothing new. But short videos take the TV mindset to a whole new level, so to speak. This is going to have huge effects for society, in my opinion, and I'm going to go deep into that in the second or maybe third part of this video. I'm sorry, I had to break it up because I think the length would simply be too long for most viewers, but you can let me know in the comments what you think about that. Alright folks, so this is it. This is the future we're going to. I'm trying to be as objective as possible, but who am I kidding? It doesn't look good. However, I really refuse to cater to doomerism, even though it's going to cost me some likes and clicks and comments. If you've gotten this far in the video, you are most likely not that group of people that binges on short videos and TikTok. Maybe it annoys you when you hear someone next to you watching the same silly video over and over. Maybe you find it incomprehensible how people could swipe through so many of these videos. Trust me, I know the feeling. But we have to remember that these are fellow human beings here. Maybe they are tired after a long day's work and just want to kill some brain cells. Maybe they're just kids goofing around or bored. Maybe their parents are swiping TikTok and practically taught the kids also to swipe TikTok. We have to remember not to demonize people that use these apps a lot. Instead, we have to use our vanishingly rare power of concentration to try to figure out what is going on and what we can do about it. Because there are a lot of bigger things at play here than just a bunch of Frito pendejos watching Ow My Balls. Okay, so that was my introduction to brain rot. I hope you guys found it instructive, and stay tuned for later parts of the video. Please give a comment if you have one, and thanks for watching, guys. Stay human out there.